Okay. And for those who are coming in or who are already present, we are going to be recording this meeting. So I just wanted to let you know up front in case you wanted to turn your camera off. That's totally fine, but you are being recorded, and we will be sharing this, the recording on the website later on.
Yeah, I know it's 7 o'clock, but we're going to give it a couple minutes just in case people are still trying to log in. We've already decided next time we're playing music. Find a good soundtrack to play. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the RHS Parent University. My name is Linda Moriarty. I'm an admin teacher on special assignment, or TOSA. I've been at Rangeview for about, I think this is my 9th year, 8th and a half-ish. Before this year, I was a counselor. I've also have been a parent of a Rangeview graduate, so I kind of get the parent perspective on this. This is just one of my passions, is to help kind of build that connection and community between families, the greater community, and Rangeview staff. Katie.
And I'm Katie Larson, and I'm a new school counselor to Rangeview this year. I'm very excited to be here. And oh, we've got another person coming in. Welcome for those who are just joining. We are recording this meeting, so if you'd like to turn your camera off, that's totally fine. We will be using the recording for later on.
And we have like a picture of the icon at the top to kind of show you where, you know, what it looks like to turn on and off your camera, as well as the sound. We ask that you mute your computer, except for during the times where we have Q&A, then you can unmute to go ahead and talk. As Katie said, this is going to be recorded. It'll be on the website. We're going to be using the Q&A part of the website or the Google Meet. So if you open up up at the very top of your screen, there's like a little triangle, square, and circle. In there, you'll see Q&A, and that is where you can post questions, comments. If you have any tips that you want to share with other parents and students here, you can type them in there. And then this will get transcribed through Google Meet, and that will also be what we share on the website, the basic questions and answers. We'll take off any names if they appear on the transcript. So that way then other families who aren't able to join us tonight will have access to the questions and answers that have occurred tonight, because there's a good chance if you have one, other people have the same question and answer.
And so as we kind of go through the presentation, we are gonna you're gonna hear a lot of talking from us with hopefully some breaks between slides where we'll ask you questions and for feedback. And so you can feel free to unmute to answer those questions, or you can post your questions or responses in the chat box. But just something to start thinking about as we begin here is just kind of what are your concerns and what are your challenges that you're facing in this remote learning setting. We know that there's probably many, but just especially those key challenges that you feel like that we could help support from the school end. And then what are your academic expectations for your students? How do they vary from other years? Are they different? Are they the same? We would love to hear more about just kind of where those have landed in our current situation. So again, feel free to continue thinking about those, and we'll ask them again as the presentation goes on. Linda, you're muted.
I'm working off of 2 screens, so I'm like, so sorry about that. Topics for tonight are understanding remote learning engagement expectations, things that parents and families can access to help monitor student progress, how to set up a learning environment at home so that way your student can be successful. What do you do if your student fail the class during sessions 1 or 2? Because those sessions happen very fast. What can you do to kind of get your student back on track? And then online resources, and then we'll also end with the Q&A.
Okay, so understanding remote learning engagement expectations. We have a few things that we think would be really helpful to make as clear as possible, just to help you help your student engage more in school in our current learning setting. So a really important thing to remember is that sessions are so short. They operate so differently than a quarter system or a semester system. So missing even a day of class is the same sometimes as missing up to a week, because it is 3 hours of content, and a typical class in a typical school year would only be an hour. So it's triple what a student would be learning in a usual school day. So attendance is really, really important in our current setting. Another thing to keep in mind is that students must log into their virtual class meetings every day, Monday through Thursday, unless told otherwise by their teacher. They will always be meeting virtually with teachers, holding regular class from 7:30 to 10:30 in the morning, and then PM classes, so afternoon classes are 12:30 to 3:30, and then flex classes, which some of your students may have, often vary, and so the teacher will give you specific times. But that's a really, really important thing to remember, is that it is very consistent every single day, Monday through Thursday. That is the expectation, is that students come for those entire 3 hours. I know with it being at home and it being so different, that it can be tempting to have your student help out with things, you know, go drive a sibling somewhere else during the class period, because it's like, oh, they'll just be gone 20 minutes of a 3-hour class. But they're missing really important content that they wouldn't miss if they were in the school building. So it is really important that they're present that entire time. Other things that are really important, and that They're not always fully maybe explained to you by the student, by your student, or even by the teacher, is that students need to demonstrate that they are present. Just being logged in to their Google meeting or Zoom meeting or whatever it is not always enough to demonstrate that they are attending. Teachers often ask that if a student is not, or a teacher often asks that a student engage in some way to let them know that they are there and they are listening, because if students have their cameras off, which they are allowed to do, then it's really hard for a teacher to tell if a student is there, if they're understanding, if they're listening. And so often teachers will require they demonstrate at some point that they are present in the class. And so if your student, it seems like they are logged in and they are in their meeting every day, but they're getting marked absent, that might be why. And that's a really important thing to get in touch with the teacher about, or check with your student about, to make sure that your student is demonstrating that they are present in that class. Fridays are still school days. That is something that has kind of been confusing so far this year. Students need to do the independent work assigned to them by teachers every Friday. They complete it at any point in the day, but attendance and schoolwork still counts for those days. So if the student does not do that work on Friday, they will be marked absent. And so if you are seeing that, or you're noticing that your student is being marked absent on Fridays pretty consistently, that is probably because they're not completing that schoolwork during that time frame that is required by the teacher. And so then they are being marked absent, and that will affect their overall attendance. Also, and finally, every session, students earn a half a credit, which is the equivalent to a semester's worth of credit. And so that's why these sessions are so important, why attendance is so important during each session, is because it is the equivalent to a semester's worth of a class. And so they're learning so much material in just such a short time frame. And so it's really, really important that you keep in mind that they are earning half of the credit that is required for the school year for a class in just those 20 days. So that's something really important to keep in mind.
Okay, I want to take a moment and open it up to finding out what are some of the concerns that you have or challenges that you're facing this year. So we'll spend a few minutes just hearing what you have encountered and your experiences are this year. So you can either type it into the chat box of the Q&A, or you can unmute and feel free to share.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay.
Yes.
Because this is still new to me. Hello, everybody. My name is Regina Bosma. My son, Landon Bosma, is a freshman at Rangeview. Special shout out to Arlene Lanier, because she has been with a previous child. All four of my children have been in APS. This is the fourth one to go to Rangeview, so I'm very familiar with the school and the model and being a part of that. And I think it's great. I want to say that because I'm comfortable. My concern is that my son is in trouble. He is failing, and it's not as simple as just not doing the work. The challenge is the engagement. He's a 14-year-old boy who went from being bright and outgoing and socially ready and interactive with teachers that knew him by name to someone who doesn't even want to engage, and he literally resents the lack of the interpersonals with teachers. And I know teachers, that's so great to hear, because my kids liked their teachers and relationships, and I always encourage that. And I can't substitute. I can't figure it out. It's a challenge and a half, and I literally can't get him to get past this is the way it is.
And I completely understand. We're hearing that from students, parents, and even the teachers, because typically a semester is 90 days approximately, and teachers are now being asked to squish all that curriculum down into 60 hours. And so then it's like, how do you take out curriculum? How do you build those relationships? And that 20-day window, it's hard. How do you get to know the students? especially when it's not in person, it's, over technology. So you can't have some of the same engaging conversations that typically occur in a classroom or even after class or during clubs. We do have some clubs that are trying to still meet, and even that is a little bit of a challenge. I think that's something that people are trying to figure out how best to do that. And that's something that we can take to staff and say, maybe it's worth, looking at adding in some more just get to know you activities, short throughout the week. Or I think it's something that we'll have to brainstorm as a staff, how to better build those relationships. Okay, it looks like we have concern about knowledge retention because the sessions go so fast and it's hard to truly understand the information. Yeah, that's something else that we're also hearing. I think that's across the country. Parents are kind of concerned about the retention of material through this online remote setting. Plus, then we have the added layer of the 20-day sessions. I think that's where it would be good for students to know that on the asynchronous Fridays, they could look at reaching out to their teachers to see about office hours, see if they can meet with a teacher then. We know some teachers are doing their office hours for that extra support after an AM class. So during that time between AM and PM class, we've even had some stay after their PM classes and meet with students till 4:30, 5 o'clock, just to help support them. Just today, I heard a couple of staff members saying that they've even done it over on the weekend. So I would encourage families, students to find out when their teachers have those office hours. So that way then they can meet with the teacher to get that extra support. And during that extra support is another way to kind of build the relationship. But I know that even the district is looking at how can we help families and students feel like there's that retention of the curriculum and the content. So that's definitely a concern throughout the district. Let's see, we have another concern about courses such as AP honors for freshmen. How will they be able to refresh for the exams on such a fast-paced setting? Right, the tests aren't till May, and the students, we have none of the AP classes in that last session 8 because they would run out of time before the test to even get through all the curriculum. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if teachers are doing study sessions or encouraging students to set up study sessions in groups. That's something I always encourage, and I believe all teachers and other counselors encourage students to do anyways, even when we're on a traditional years, set up those study groups with your peers. That just builds that community. It'll help keep those skills being refreshed. Khan Academy is a website that offers AP support, so students can look at the curriculum there. We've had students look at getting AP books from the library or buying them. College Board also offers AP studying support. So it'd be reaching out to the different resources and seeing what works best for your student.
Right.
And Linda, Katie, did we also put as many AP classes as we possibly could right before the exam? So a lot of kids will have that second part of their AP exam in session 7 in the spring, right before the AP exam. So we tried to be really cognizant of making sure those classes end up there. So for that very reason, so kids have a refresher right before the exam.
Thank you, Lisa. That's exactly what I was just going to add is that, yeah, your student, we absolutely hear you on that concern. Everything that Linda and Lisa both just said is extremely valid. However, something that's really important to keep in mind is that the second half of the class will still be in the spring. So they're not going like months and months without getting any content. It's still not ideal that it's only been 20 days per semester, but it's not going to be taking the class in the fall and then not taking the test again until May. You'll be taking your student will be taking a class next semester as well, the second half of that class.
The next concern is about why the district chose the 20-day sessions where it feels rushed versus kind of modifying our current schedule or whatever. It's what the district decided, and as a school, we have to kind of go along with it. that'd be something that's out of our control. Next session or next semester classes are about 22 days long, not much better, but it's something we're gonna have to kind of get through for this year. My recommendation would be to reach out to the school board and just see what, they say. But for right now, we're pretty much stuck with the 20-day, 22-day sessions, unfortunately. So yeah, we understand. We're feeling the pain of the families and the students, because even the teachers are having to get all that content down into 20 days and the 3-hour sessions. It's hard on everybody. It really is hard. I hope that I know there's not a real answer for that one. I'm sorry. I'm concerned on how every teacher grades, since every teacher is a different system of grading, and it's hard to get used to it in only 20 days. That's even on a regular school year. There's just a slight variation in how teachers grade, late work policies, how much they weight tests, the summative exams versus formative. It's part, it's one of the things with high school, and even in college is a little bit that way. So my recommendation would be to reach out to teachers so that way you're familiar with how they grade and what their policies are around work. And then they should be updating grades regularly. We have a 20-day window, so they post progress grades after the first half, which is about 10 days in, and then the grades have to be posted the second half. Most teachers post at least weekly. Some will do it even daily, but it's just getting to know how each teacher does their grading. Does that clarify that for you concerning the grading? And the consistency with teachers, they should all be using the same grading scale. That is one thing that is consistent. Within, Lisa, can you talk a little bit more about the grading by chance?
Yeah, well, the grading scale, or however they use it, if that's I think one thing. It is 90 to 100, 80 to 90, and like what we used to have back in the day. But it's kind of weird because we still also are grading on standards. Standards based is what we're focused on. So it's kind of this weird dual system. But I think the bigger issue, and I have a high schooler myself, and Linda and I were actually just talking about this today, is I didn't realize my freshman son at a different school was struggling in a couple of his classes until I saw the grades. And then it was like this red flag for me of, oh my gosh, you're missing some assignments. What is happening? And then it sparked me to start having some conversations with teachers and emailing, and we got him back to where he needs to be. But it was this aha moment of the grade. So so some of the concerns that you guys are bringing up, we will share with our staff and make sure that we tighten some of our systems as best we can in this crazy 20-day session, fast-paced world we're living in right now online. But we will absolutely bring that forward, because you're right, the grades need to be there so that you as a parent know my kid's doing great, they're on point, or oh my gosh, what just happened? And so that's a concern for me as a parent myself. And so we'll make sure that we share that with staff and get some more consistency on grades being posted, as Linda said, weekly in some way, shape, or form, so you know what's going on. And then it will absolutely come out 10 days in, because that's that halfway point. That should have been pretty consistent lately, but I think that's not enough time, right? You need it much more sooner than halfway through the 20-day session. So we'll work on that with our staff for sure. Thank you for elevating that to my level, so I can hear what's going on.
And then the last question that's posted so far is about syllabus. Some teachers have their syllabus posted, some don't. That's something that last year we had every syllabus was posted on the website. We just didn't get it done this year. Can't say that we can't do that. It's something that maybe we could still see if we can collect those from all the teachers and have it available for parents and students to be able to access and review. But that's something that we'll bring up with staff and see if they can get those submitted to us. That way we can get them onto the website.
And then really quickly, Linda, I just wanted to return to Regina's concern about just like her son and how he's struggling with the lack of interpersonal like interaction and engagement. And it's something I've been struggling with. I think we all have been struggling with the last few months, especially being in school. And if anyone has any brainstorming ideas, I've like thought about starting like groups that could happen over Google Meets with students who are feeling similarly, or different things where it's like maybe you meet with your counselor or he meets with his counselor. We're very open to trying to connect students with people, especially people who are in the building or will be in the building eventually as soon as we return in person. So please like reach out. If you have any ideas, I'm happy to brainstorm, have that conversation, even if your student is not technically under my alphabet, because it's something that's really important to me, and I think really important to everyone, in figuring out how we can really have that interpersonal engagement, because we're in such a strange environment. Everyone's so elevated up here, stressed out. Sometimes some teachers are at capacity before class is even over. And some have been fighting to try and have that engagement with their students, and students are signing off as soon as, the class is over. So we're working on it, and I want to make that really clear, is that that's something that we think about all the time. And any ideas that you all have as parents or feedback would be really, really helpful as we move forward with that, because we do know how important that is.
If I may, Katie, and I know
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you long. First of all, thank you so much. I appreciate you addressing. And I just want to say, and I think all of the concerns and what I've heard tonight are valid, because I have dear friends whose children are honor roll students, and they're on point with their education, and they have concerns, and it's like, what's going to happen? And I believe that that's equally important as those like my son who are struggling. What I want to say, and it's not to be disparaging of those goals and opportunities that they've hit and met, because I support them, I feel like I'm lost in a sea of I don't know, and I'm not looking for you to fix my son. I am an involved parent and family, and he's got a great support system and village. But what I have felt a lack of, and I will say this, is that I have reached out to several staff. And unfortunately, I feel like the plan and step to action was not as quick as it should be, because I'm not talking to you about a child who just decided, oh, well, hey, forget it, I'll just skate by, because that's not the family and the strategy he comes from. It's not his stock. I'm talking to you about a child who I literally look at and the light has gone out of his eyes, in a sense that, hey, I can't be with my friends. I get it. Everybody else is like that, but I don't know. This just doesn't feel right. I don't understand looking at a computer screen for 3 hours. This teacher has even spelled my name wrong twice in an email. So I have no value, and I am just here and expected to go through the motions. And it's not a disciplinary thing. This is not a 6-year-old throwing a tantrum. This is not a child who comes from a family who's not educated and of literature. We are of, hey, we're all feeling this, but I don't have those tools as an educator, and I don't expect you guys to have all the answers, because we're all going through COVID world. But as educators in a world where you see children struggling more and more, that has to be something that I need to be able to come to you for guidance, because I'm asking for it under the structure of his education. I ain't asking you to raise my boy and discipline him and tell him to get up in the morning. I'm asking you because, hey, I need a teacher to send him a text and say, Landon, are you okay? Because you're missing some things. I've seen your past reports and your mom, and you're here. Hey, Landon, do you want to holler at me for just a second? And that to me should not be something that's lost because we're not in person. You're asking them to engage 20 days virtual. Then we need to be able to still engage to them as these people that were supposed to be their village, because I'm scared for my boy. Okay? And it's not because I'm asking you to raise him. I'm just saying that should not be gone, because we've had to modify our tool to educate them. You're expecting grades and interaction and engagement, then we need to still do that even though we're at a distance. And I thank you for hearing me very much.
Thank you for sharing all that with us. And I hope you know how seriously we take that. And that's what part of why we're hosting these is we really do want to connect with parents and get that feedback, because I'll use it. I hate that that's been your experience, and we're going to work on it.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Do you think he would respond if it was just a staff member who reached out to him? Because we also have some monitors and we have some classified staff who equally want to connect with students, and they could be at support piece all year. I'm just wondering if that would be something that he would respond to also, or is he one who'd prefer connecting with a teacher he's had?
Yeah, very good question. I appreciate you asking, just so that you know, because I know there's some other underlying emotional things that have developed. I feel like there's this depression hanging over him, and I'm in tune and with him. So I've been in touch with the counselor through Rangeview, just so that you guys know that those of us that want to help our children and be part of the system do pay attention, because I was asking myself questions about him and things. And I got an email, and it was from Rangeview, and it was, hey, is your child struggling with this? Are there emotions, suicide rates from this to this? It wasn't scary. It was informational. And it was like, somehow they knew they needed to reach out. And that let me know I wasn't alone. So my son doesn't have to feel like he's an anomaly, because right now we're all locked away. So how many other kids could he talk to in person that may be feeling this way? But because we've all accepted this virtual world that we have, that's just not something that's tangible because we're not in person. Well, hey, that email came as a blessing and I responded. So I do have him with someone and talking to them. He does respond that way well. I think what I'm looking for and what he's looking for is, when you see this child in trouble and you're in person learning, you talk to this kid and then there's a call or an email to the parent and you want to see me or talk to me about so-and-so. I've had them before because God bless me, I have 3 boys and we know boys are special. But I got that care. That should not change because we are virtually learning. We still have phones and I am still connected, but no teacher has called me. I've gotten a list where I know he's on the naughty one, and I've gotten hey, did you reach out to someone? And it's like, yes, I have. And I need you to reach back. Just because you can't touch him, you can touch him and you can touch me, because I don't have the teacher piece. I parent him and I'm down for you teachers and I'm down for him. But I don't think that disconnect should be there because we're not in person. And that's what's missing for me, because that email did everything to make me wake up and get him help in a different direction. I hope that makes sense.
I appreciate your honesty in sharing your experiences, because like I said earlier, I think that what one family here is experiencing, there's probably several families in the community that are experiencing the same thing. And I know that we all are, because I know that we're all just to the point where we're tired. And we just, I don't know how many times I've told my family, I'm like, I feel stuck. Like, I don't know how to get out of this like weird feeling I'm in. So I appreciate your honesty and sharing. I think a lot of us are feeling it, but how can we work together so that we don't have to feel like we're doing it alone? For sure. One more question. Do students have upcoming trainings for support behavioral health and suicide awareness? Katie, do you want to take that one?
The short answer is yes, if your student is a 9th grader, because we do SOS training with 9th graders every single year, which is signs of suicide. So every 9th grader has received a training in how to identify suicidal thoughts and behavior in their friends, family, and themselves. However, there is, so yes, so if your daughter's in 9th grade, she may have already received it, or she'll be receiving it very soon. And So that is absolutely a discussion that we're having. We're going into their geography classes and having those conversations. However, that is something that we're kind of exploring more of too, is just like what else we need for students to be aware of.
And right now we're looking at December's workshop would be around social emotional support, just because it's that time of year. We've also been past what is typically the honeymoon period of the school year, and it's without a fall break that in October like we normally have, it's hitting people. So our December one will be around social emotional support. Okay. So if nobody has any other questions, we'll go ahead and go on.
And feel free to continue to put them in the chat. We'll get to them. Okay. Things that parents and families can access. Katie, did you want to take this one or do you want me to?
We can tag team it if you don't mind, Linda. Sure.
I was just speaking with a teacher earlier today, and I feel like this is a really logistical return to kind of more the academic and technology side to how you can monitor your student progress. But just important things we want to keep in mind is that while we understand that there is not necessarily like a consistency with how teachers are communicating with you or how you're hearing from them about missing assignments and things like that, you can sign up on Infinite Campus and monitor missing assignments by signing up to receive notifications. As soon as a teacher inputs that the assignment is missing, you can see that immediately. You can monitor grades, attendance. If you need help accessing the parent portal of Infinite Campus, please contact the main office. They'll help you get access to that. It's a really great resource if you haven't already used it, to just be able to keep track of your student as they go on throughout the session. However, again, we do understand that like there has been a little inconsistency with how teachers are grading and posting grades, but we're hoping to get, as Lisa said, maybe more of like a weekly grade posting. But there's also Google Classroom. It's something that I really wanted to emphasize tonight, is that if you are not a part of your students' Google Classrooms and you would like to be, many teachers, if not all teachers, are open to you joining the Google Classrooms if you reach out to them to ask for access, or your student can often give you access to Google Classroom. And then you can see the classwork that they're doing and turning in, and you can have your student show you what they've turned in. And so if that's a concern for you, that can be a great resource that teachers are willing to share and offer. And so that is also a great platform to look at. Some teachers are also using Remind or talking point text messaging, and those can be great communication devices as well. However, what we really wanted to emphasize is teacher contacts. They really do want to hear from you. I know that may not be the same enthusiasm maybe across the board, but from my resounding feedback from teachers is that they do like to hear from parents, especially if you've already checked Infinite Campus, you've already looked at the Google Classroom, and you still have questions or concerns about your student. Please reach out to them, and even better, have your student reach out to them. And if they CC you, or what I've had with students do is CC me, so that I know that they're advocating for themselves as well. That can be a great practice for having them fight for their needs and wants as well, and to, especially if they're struggling grade-wise or with assignments, pushing them to advocate for themselves is a really awesome tool right now, especially with email. And most teachers do use email as their main point of contact. And so that's a great just first step in making sure that you're keeping track of your email account and also your students to make sure that they're checking regularly too, because that is how most communication is coming out right now. Linda, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just say I would recommend just encouraging your student to get into the habit of checking their email too, just because so much information is sent by the teachers, and even the counseling department sends a lot of information about concurrent enrollment or other programs that are available. as they get older, scholarships will be sent that direction. So getting them used to checking their email regularly is, something we all would encourage you to help your students do. And like this slide says, teachers do want to hear. I'm not going to come up with excuses, but teachers are. It is a little bit hard for teachers. Right now, they're having to turn a typical lesson into a slide presentation with engaging activities, and so some of them do get, especially when they have an AM and a PM class, you might find that they might get a little bit, might take a little bit longer for them to respond, just because they've got, they're teaching 6 hours a day and then trying to do all the grading and supports and everything. But just keep reaching out to them. And if you don't hear anything, feel free to reach out to a counselor, to a dean. Some of you have already been contacted by the monitor that's help support that, your student's alpha. They can help build that connection. Any an administrator can also help with that connection. So feel free to reach out to other staff members if you're not hearing back from a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also add to that, just don't be afraid to be harassing anyone or be too pushy. Be too pushy right now. I think that's safe to say. Because likely also if they haven't answered you in a few days, they maybe read it and then something came up and then they didn't get back to it and then it disappeared and then it was out of their brain. So please follow up. Please follow up. That's what I always tell my parents, especially for students that I communicate with, is if you don't hear from me within a day, send me another email. I'm happy to get it.
Things for setting up the learning environment at home, consistency with that routine and structure, that daily routine, it's good even during a traditional school year. And I know many parents try to do that. But I think we're seeing that even more important this year, especially if there's a session where your student has only one class. Instead of being engaged the whole day, they've got one class, and then the other half of the day, they are a little bit, freer on what they can do. But building that routine of still getting up at the same time, logging into the computer, doing their work, all of that routine will help help the students stay engaged. Same location is even a help. We have had some interesting settings this year for where students are doing it. One we would recommend is preferably, they actually are out of bed to engage in class, but having that set place for them to work, is a good idea. We do know though that, some families are facing challenges. They don't always have internet accessible at home. So students are accessing their, internet in a variety of locations around town. Some of them are even having to log in to their Google Classrooms on their phones because either internet's out or something's happened. So we do understand that every day could be a new adventure in how to access the Google Classroom and get engaged. Break times, we're encouraging teachers to have break times. If we ever get in person, they'll even have set break times. Just that way everybody can stretch. But when students aren't in class, it's equally important to have them step away from technology. So that way they're not getting that technology fatigue of having to sit for hours in front of a computer or on the phone or in front of technology, any technology. So encourage your student to take breaks at times outside of the class, the class time, and have them doing things, whether it's, a chore around the house or go take, break outside if the weather's nice. Just walk around. If you have a pet, have them play with the pet. It could be anything that kind of gets them away from technology. So that way they don't have that technology fatigue, because that is something that they're finding is definitely impacting engagement and moods and how people just feel about wanting to do stuff. When you're sitting in front of the computer for 6 hours a day, it's tiring and it's hard on the eyes too. So it'd be good just, for the physical side of things too, that way your body's not getting, muscles constricting and doing weird things. Your eyes are getting that break. So definitely up and move, and that'll help students. One thing that we are really encouraging parents to do is if you could have the computer set up in a spot so that it can be somewhat monitored, so that way students aren't engaging in social media during class time. We're having that as an issue where students are doing other things, playing video games, doing all sorts of things while they're in class. And studies are starting to come out to show that there is no such thing as multitasking when you're on social media. You're not going to be able to remember what else you're doing while you're multitasking if you're on social media. So really encourage your student to be off of social media, video games, texting during the class time.
And I'll just add to that too, for the sake of like consistency and adding that routine and structure, is like helping your student take a look at how they're using their time. I found that one of the simplest but most like maybe helpful thing, like practice to do with your student, is to have them literally break down their day half hour by half hour, how they typically spend their time, and really take a look at what they're using their time for. Because often once you see where your time is going, you often want to make small changes here and there for how you spend that half hour or hour or 2 hours that you end up playing video games or on social media, or maybe just like sleeping, that you could be using that in a more like productive or beneficial way, not even necessarily with schoolwork, but with things that maybe bring a little bit more joy or happiness to their day.
Not that this would be part of the physical environment, but another part of the whole learning environment would be the engagement, conversations between you and your student, asking those open-ended questions like, what did you do in class today? Or, hey, can you show me your Google Class? Show me what you're doing in class. And that engagement on a regular basis might even help with holding them a little bit more accountable, because then they have to be able to be like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to explain this to my mom or my dad or my, whoever's asking me in my family, older brother, sister, grandparents. But including those open-ended questions is part of the learning environment in the house, which I'm sure some of you are already doing. So it's just, encouraging, keep that going, and, getting other families to do that too.
Okay. And so what if your student failed a class during sessions 1 or 2? First and foremost, absolutely feel free to reach out to your student's counselor, especially depending on grade level. It's great to open that line of communication for what we're going to do to get those credits back if we need those credits. And we can start figuring out scheduling and where we're going to put those classes later. It doesn't just have to be like, oh, we failed, we'll just figure that out later. We can move on it pretty quickly. And just really kind of open that line of communication to and conversation around what that student might need in order to turn that around in the next session. And so on top of that, have conversations about what led to the F and find the why. It does sound like a lot of you are already doing this, but like keeping in mind that like an F doesn't always have to result in a consequence or something really punitive. Looking into it and seeing, why did the F happen? What's going on social emotionally? What's going on that resulted in the F? If it was a bunch of missing assignments and it was laziness and they were just playing video games during class instead, then figuring out how we can avoid those distractions in the future. Or if it's something more social emotional or something else that's going on under the surface, figuring out what next steps can be in order to get them more help. And another really important question that I think students don't hear about very often is what they have control over in their learning, especially in this environment. So specifically asking that question and being like, what do you have control over right now? And what do you not have control over right now? Because you don't always have control over what your teachers are going to assign, what schedule you're going to be in, where you're going to be, but you do have control over how you advocate for yourself, how you ask questions, making time to do homework, and just asking for help in general. And then asking the student, how can the additional Fs be avoided? What do they think like needs to be different? Do they need more motivation? Do they need to find their why for like why they care about school? And then kind of exploring within your family what consequences are going to be for missing assignments or slipping grades. And if you already have consequences in place and they're not working, what you're going to try instead, and what the student thinks would be more motivating for them than the current consequence. And then ultimately, how does your student problem solve? Like encourage them to critically think, how are they going to get themselves out of this situation, or how are they going to change the situation in the future if they find themselves in this situation again. And we did add just counselors and alphabet, and you can find that on the Rangeview website as well. But definitely feel free to open up that line of communication if your student got an F in sessions 1, 2, or now 3. We would love to talk to you about how we can triage the situation, because it doesn't have to mean a long-term consequence for the student.
Okay, so this next question isn't one that necessarily needs to be answered in chat or out loud, but personally, thinking about what are your expectations for your students this school year, knowing that this is a very different year, and then how are you expressing those expectations to your student? So I'm just going to give you a moment for you to kind of think about what your expectations look like, sound like, and then how you're going to convey that information. And if you are open to sharing, if you want to share, feel free. You can also do that. You don't have to. Okay. Let me go ahead and move forward. Some online resources that are available to you. We're going to publish and put out the RHS resource website for students and families. We'll do that after this meeting, and on it, there'll be sections for the students to get specific resources that'll fit their needs, and then there'll be family resources that will also fit the needs of the parents and guardians. So that'll be published and out there tonight. We'll send you all links to it. The Rangeview website has some information on it. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit, but it is on there. APS has a parent playbook. I can link that into the email that contains the RHS website link. But that's the district playbook that has a variety of information for families to use as a resource. Infinite Campus is a resource, as Katie talked about earlier, as is Google Classroom. Back to the RHS resource website, there will be academic supports, social emotional, and then just some general basic needs resources also on that website for families.
And some of the resources we talked about, like I even included one of those blank calendars where you can break down half hour by half hour so students can kind of practice literally writing that out. So just, yeah, from very broad resources to very specific resources, there'll be a number of things on there available.
Candace mentioned that she'd like her daughter to overcome shyness and learn to ask Meyer questions for things that she needs clarified. Something that I used to recommend students do in the classroom if they don't feel like they can raise their hand and ask is write it down to start with, and if they can at least put it on paper for themselves, and then maybe they can either share it in the Google chat or they can email it to the teacher, and then just start taking those steps. If she doesn't feel like she can just join in a conversation that's in the Google Classroom, just start with writing it down and putting the thoughts on the paper. And sometimes some students may not even know how to ask a question. So that's really where they need to help, getting some help with how to formulate the question so that way they feel like they can express what they need. And along those lines, I'll tell students, just start asking, and a teacher's job is to also help figure out what you're wanting to know. So they'll keep asking clarifying questions until they understand exactly what the students need. So then that way then they can answer the student's question. So now we're just going to open up to any other questions that you might have, or other supports or anything that you'd like to just bring forward. And feel free to either unmute or type them into the chat.
Hey, we're gonna sign off here. I just wanted to say thank you for offering this. I was really glad to see it come across, and while there's some things that totally pertain to me and some things that don't directly pertain to me, I feel like the entire session and parents gathering and talking and sharing things pertains to me because all of our children are in a village together. And I may not know all of your children, but I want them to be successful right alongside of my hope that you would want my child to be successful. So if there are bits and pieces that we can all take away and things that spoke to me that can move me forward and I can touch someone else who might be in this situation, because I have learned we're not alone, sadly, but also unification wise, that's great. And if I can still propel my friend's child who's on the APS track of all stars, then I'm down to do that too. So I appreciate you guys making this happen and making it available. And it was good. So thank you. We've learned some things. So thank you so much.
To kind of finalize before you leave, I've got just one of my favorite poems that I just put up on the screen. And then we will be sending out a survey, kind of a follow-up survey that's short, just to kind of get some more feedback. Don't feel like you have to answer it right away. Take some time to, process and, answer it, over the next several days or so, because we will take those answers and, use them to help formulate our next one. Like I said, our next one will be in December, and it'll be around mental health. Let's see. Parents, here's an idea for one, maybe a group for parents that has one another's contact info for support, if folks are comfortable. We could look at doing, like a parent support group like that. I think that would be a great idea, that we could, have it just kind of as an open conversation time. I definitely appreciate all of the information that you guys have shared tonight, questions, comments, and everything. I think that's, it's a start. We need to start that conversation of how can we, build that community, that strong community for our students. So I appreciate all of you being here tonight.
Yes, and I'll echo that. Thank you all so much for your participation and for being here and for all of your feedback. We really do want to hear all of this from you, and it's why we're doing it, and we're definitely hoping to only improve and hone it more to what you all actually need moving forward. So definitely stay in communication. And I love the idea of some kind of parent group. We could maybe do like booster sessions following workshops where it's more just a conversation. So that's definitely worth looking into. So thank you for that idea. Okay. So look out for that email with that survey, and do please respond if you have the time. It would be really helpful for us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night. Okay, you want to start? You can stop recording.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop recording now. Hold on.